was childish, that was idiotic, all those type of words. I regret doing that, and I apologize to him.
Kevin Durant, one of the greatest to ever lace them up. But now, he's issuing a public apology after a secret burner account tied to his phone number got blown wide open. We aren't talking about small grievances here. We're talking about radioactive comments torching his own teammates, Kyrie, Harden, and burning bridges with the Warriors legends he used to share the floor with. What began as a late-night Twitter rant didn't stay on the timeline. It crashed right into the locker room. But what really went down behind the scenes to force an MVP to beg for forgiveness? Let's peel back the curtain. The burner account that changed everything. You see, for most of his career, the legend of Kevin Durant was a tale of two different men. On the hardwood, the man was a ghost, a myth, nearly untouchable. Imagine a 7-foot sniper moving with the fluid grace of a point guard, armed with a jump shot that grazed the arena lights. He possessed a killer instinct that made him arguably the deadliest offensive weapon the league has ever witnessed. Opposing coaches called him a cheat code. His teammates called him an alien, a once-in-a-lifetime anomaly. Analysts didn't just call him good. They carved his face on the Mount Rushmore of scorers. But the moment the final buzzer sounded, the narrative got messy. KD wasn't the Hollywood superstar. He wasn't built for the red carpet or the rehearsed Nike commercials. He didn't flash the $1 million smile or feed the media the polite, robotic sound bites they craved. He was quiet, brooding, introspective. And if you ask the pundits, they'd tell you he was thin-skinned, sensitive. And the critics? They smelled blood in the water. Every move was a headline. Every playoff exit was an indictment on his legacy. Every sentence he spoke was dissected like a crime scene. And with the explosion of social media, the hate wasn't just on ESPN anymore. It was everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. The comment sections turned into a war zone. Trending topics were filled with venom. It was constant, loud, and suffocating. Most superstars, they hand their phone to an agent, they tune it out, but not Durant. He saw it all. He read the trolls, he lurked in the threads, and sometimes he decided to fight back. That obsession led us to one of the most bizarre sagas in NBA history. We aren't talking about a locker room brawl or a contract dispute. We're talking about Twitter fingers. Specifically, secret accounts that were never meant to see the light of day. Because the internet detectives found something that shattered the cool, mysterious image. Kevin Durant wasn't just reading the hate mail. He was in the trenches, wearing a digital mask, using burner accounts to clap back at teenagers and defend his own legacy. And when the media finally cornered him, he didn't even try to lie about the motive. Yeah, it was me. I wanted to be stealth. I didn't want anybody to know. That confession, it became the defining stamp on his public persona, a billionaire athlete arguing with eggs on Twitter. But to understand the burner, you have to understand the fire. This story starts with the decision that put a target on his back. Rewind to the summer of 2016. Durant pulls the trigger on the most polarizing move in the history of American sports. After choking a 3-1 lead to the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals, he turned around and joined the enemy the very next season. The Warriors weren't just good. They were a Death Star, fresh off a historic 73-win campaign. By putting on that jersey, Durant didn't just form a great team. He created a monopoly, a super team that broke the math of the NBA. Some saw it as genius, a shark finding the best ocean. But to the purists, it was treason, a total betrayal of the competitive spirit. He didn't want to beat the boss. He joined the boss. And that shadow hung over every ring, every MVP trophy, and every bucket he scored after that. The hate was a tsunami. He couldn't post a picture of his dog without the replies turning toxic. You can't win alone. Bus rider. Soft. Took the easy road. They told him his rings were hollow, plastic. Most guys would walk away. Durant? He walked right into the fire. At first, he barked back from his main page. But eventually, he went underground, creating anonymous avatars. These profiles didn't carry the weight of Kevin Durant, NBA champion. They allowed him to get down in the mud and brawl with the haters without risking the brand. They were his shield and his sword. Burner accounts. It was the perfect crime until the day he got sloppy. He saw a tweet that ticked him off. He typed a furious reply. But he forgot one tiny detail. He was still logged into his official, verified account with millions of followers. He hit send, and in that split second, the facade crumbled. The internet is undefeated. Fans instantly realized the syntax, the tone, and the arguments matched a specific anonymous account that had been aggressively defending KD for months. It took hours, not days. The story went nuclear. ESPN, talk radio, the blogs, everyone was laughing. It became the meme of the year. This wasn't just an athlete clapping back. This was a superstar caught red-handed having a conversation with himself. But when people actually read the tweets, the laughter stopped. It got ugly. He wasn't just defending his stats, he was trashing the Oklahoma City organization and throwing his old teammates under the bus. It didn't look like a calculated PR move. It looked raw, emotional, petty. For a guy who spent a decade building a wall of silence around his personality, this was a total exposure. The mask was off, and the world saw a version of Kevin Durant they never expected. We're talking about a superstar who didn't just play the game. He lived in the comment section, obsessing over every single word the world had to say about him. But right when the dust had finally settled, right when the noise started to quiet down, boom, another alleged burner scandal erupted from the shadows years later. And folks, this wasn't just a repeat of history. This time, the vibe was darker, weirder, and infinitely more cringeworthy. Screenshots started flooding timelines, exposing an account seemingly linked directly to Kevin Durant. But here is the kicker. According to the reports, this account wasn't just playing defense anymore. It was on the offensive, openly torching teammates, throwing coaches under the bus, and tearing apart entire organizations from the inside out. Earlier today, the internet broke when Durant's alleged burner was exposed for trash-talking guys he shared a locker room with. That alone? That's enough to light a firestorm. But what made this situation crawl under your skin, what made it truly bizarre, was exactly where this drama was going down. We aren't talking about public debates on the timeline. We aren't talking about going toe-to-toe with verified critics. We are talking about private group chats with absolute randoms. Let that sink in. He wasn't venting to his inner circle, his boys, or fellow NBA legends. He was allegedly in a group chat with random Twitter avatars, people nobody knows. And that one detail, it completely flipped the script on how we looked at this. This wasn't Durant clapping back at trolls in the heat of the moment. This was a global icon venting about his actual coworkers, wearing a digital mask, whispering secrets to strangers on the web. For the fan base, the mood shifted instantly. It stopped being funny and started feeling way too personal. It felt messy because suddenly this wasn't about Twitter fingers anymore. This was about the sanctity of the locker room and the death of trust. And get this, while these screenshots are spreading like wildfire, the cameras cut to Durant at the All-Star game, literal face glued to his phone while his reputation is burning down online. You couldn't write a better script. That shot of him at the All-Star game today, it became the instant symbol of the chaos. One of the greatest scorers to ever touch a basketball, sitting amidst the glitz and glamour of All-Star Weekend, doom-scrolling while the world debated if he was secretly stabbing his teammates in the back. By the time he looked up, the narrative was cemented. The fans had moved past the tweets themselves. They were psychoanalyzing the man. Some called it embarrassing behavior for a legend. Others, they strangely found it relatable, like he was just one of us. A handful of people actually respected the raw honesty of it, but almost everyone could agree on one undeniable fact. It was just weird. Superstars aren't supposed to move like this. They don't sit in the mud arguing with Egg Avatar 2-3. They aren't supposed to hide behind fake names like a teenager with a secret diary, and they definitely aren't supposed to get caught red-handed. But Kevin Durant, he was caught. And frankly, the story had evolved way beyond 280 characters. It became a referendum on perception, on legacy, and on how we view one of the most gifted athletes on the planet the moment he steps off the hardwood. Because you have to ask, if he's willing to say this stuff anonymously to strangers, what is he thinking when he looks you in the eye? That question was the fuel for the backlash that was about to explode. The internet didn't just turn on KD, it devoured him. Once that burner story hit the airwaves, it didn't just trend for an hour, it dominated. It tore through the sports world with that terrifying velocity that only a modern, viral disaster can muster. What began as some internet sleuths connecting dots turned into a full-blown media spectacle in the blink of an eye. Within a single news cycle, this thing jumped the fence from Twitter drama to headline news on every major sports network in America. You had TV analysts breaking down screenshots at halftime. You had morning radio hosts cracking jokes about it during the commute. Entire podcasts ripped up their run of show to dedicate hour-long episodes to the drama. Social media took on a life of its own. It was relentless. Every major outlet was running with it. Every fan page, big or small, had a hot take ready to go. Within hours, Kevin Durant burner account was one of the most searched phrases in the sport. And the reason it went nuclear is actually pretty simple. It had every ingredient for a blockbuster scandal. You have a global superstar, you have secret identities, you have the receipts, the cold, hard screenshots, and most importantly, you have the cringe-inducing realization that an NBA MVP was spending his free time arguing with anonymous nobodies. But what turned this from a funny meme into a legitimate crisis wasn't just the existence of the account. It was the radioactive content spilling out of it. We aren't talking about KD defending his jump shot. According to the leaks, this was friendly fire. He was allegedly ripping into his own squad, complaining about the roster, and airing dirty laundry. He was comparing franchises and dissecting internal politics in a way that sounded way too specific and deeply personal to be a fan. Some of these comments were taking direct shots at guys he went to war with on the court, venting frustrations about team direction that changed the entire conversation from funny to toxic. What could have been written off as a quirky online addiction suddenly looked like a betrayal. It stopped feeling like social media nonsense and started looking like a cancer in the locker room. And in pro sports, at this elite level, locker room chemistry isn't just a buzzword, it is everything. Championship teams are built on a foundation of trust. You need to know the guy next to you has your back, not a burner phone. Coaches need buy-in, and fans need to believe their superstar carries the shield with honor. When that trust cracks, the whole house of cards starts to shake. Suddenly, the trust that held the fan base together didn't just crack, it shattered. Fans started asking the uncomfortable questions, demanding to know who exactly was in the sniper's crosshairs. Did the guys in the locker room know the call was coming from inside the house? Imagine staring at your phone, scrolling through those screenshots, and realizing the superstar sitting 3 lockers down might be trashing you to strangers. Was this just a late-night vent session gone wrong, or were we looking at the smoke signals of a team culture on the brink of implosion? The narrative spun out of control instantly. We weren't talking about a few rogue tweets anymore. The conversation shifted to the psychology of a superstar and what those digital footprints represented. The debate raged over the airwaves, attacking his character, questioning his leadership, and wondering if a guy this obsessed with anonymous trolls could truly command a locker room. Was he secretly miserable with his squad? Was he at war with the front office? And the biggest question of all, is this the behavior of a champion or a guy who just can't tune out the noise? Those questions hijacked the news cycle. And let's be real, the internet doesn't wait for facts. It moves at the speed of light, and the truth was getting left in the dust. The meme machine went nuclear. Within minutes, the timeline was drowning in jokes about Durant high-fiving himself in the mirror and getting into shouting matches with his own shadow. Paranoia set in. Every anonymous account with 12 followers defending him suddenly became suspect number 1. Is that you, Kevin? Became the internet's favorite catchphrase. The running gag was lethal. Talk trash about the Slim Reaper, and you might actually find yourself in a digital fistfight with an N, Bachelor of Arts, MVP, without even knowing it. It got to the point where even innocent tweets sparked a manhunt. If Durant posted anything, the replies turned into a detective agency asking if he forgot to switch accounts. If a camera caught him glancing at his phone during a timeout or a gala, the internet roasted him alive. Look, he's busy clapping back at a teenager in Ohio right now. The burner account saga wasn't just a news story anymore. It had cemented itself as the ultimate punchline in the sports world. And here is the brutal truth about sports media. Once a narrative sinks its teeth into you, it does not let go. It bleeds out of the timeline and stains reality. It colors every single move you make. Suddenly, Durant wasn't just the most unguardable force on the planet, dropping 30 a night in his sleep. He wasn't just a Finals MVP or a once-in-a-lifetime talent anymore. He was the guy with the secret Twitter fingers. The superstar who needed a disguise to speak his mind. That label clung to him like a cheap suit. It haunted his post-game pressers, flooded the YouTube comments, and became the favorite talking point for every analyst on cable TV. You could be breaking down his pristine jump shot, and somehow the conversation would swerve right back into the gutter of burner accounts and insecurity. Like it or not, it was welded to his legacy. Part of the identity the public assigned to him now included internet troll. But then, just when everyone expected the standard PR, denial, or the I was hacked excuse, Durant flipped the script. He looked the controversy dead in the eye and owned it. Do you have burner accounts? Yes. Boom. Just like that, no stutter, no spin. That raw honesty sucked the air right out of the room and changed the game. It killed the speculation instantly. We weren't guessing anymore. The man himself had signed the confession. Durant was definitely the one behind the screen. But when he pulled back the curtain on times why times he did it, his logic was from a different planet than the one the critics were living on. His attitude was basically, you want to know what's in my head? Stop guessing and just listen to me. See, in Durant's world, this wasn't about hiding in the shadows or being too soft to handle the heat. He didn't see himself as a villain. He believed he was simply keeping it real, engaging with the fans on their level, man to man, without the celebrity filter. To him, the walls between athlete and fan were crumbling in the digital age, and he was just walking through the rubble. He didn't see a scandal. He saw communication. These people love it, he seemed to imply. I'm giving them the interaction they crave, even if I have to put on a mask to do it. For KD, getting into the mud with trolls wasn't embarrassing, it was just part of the game, same as a crossover or a contested three. Fans talk trash 24/7, so why shouldn't the player get to fire a few shots back? In his eyes, it was a fair fight. He genuinely believed he was helping grow the game, cutting through the polished corporate nonsense to give fans a taste of the actual human being behind the jersey. But the court of public opinion? They threw that defense out immediately. They didn't see a man of the people. They saw a billionaire athlete with rabbit ears. It looked like one of the deadliest assassins in basketball history couldn't take a jab from a random nobody without diving into a digital bunker to return fire. And once that narrative locked in, it went viral. The sports world stopped analyzing his box scores and started psychoanalyzing his ego. The buzzwords changed. He wasn't just clutch anymore. Now he was sensitive, thin-skinned, and terminally online. The burner account saga wasn't just a footnote, it was inked onto the resume right next to the championships. And in the high-stakes world of pro sports, perception is reality. Even if his teammates never confronted him, you knew the vibe in that locker room had shifted. It got weird. The mere suspicion that your franchise player might be roasting you on a secret app creates a ghost in the room that no amount of winning can fully exorcise. It breeds doubt, it tightens the tension, it leaves questions hanging in the air that nobody wants to ask out loud. And for a guy who was already the villain for joining the 73-win Warriors, this was just pouring gasoline on the bonfire of his reputation. He wasn't just the traitor who walked out on Oklahoma City anymore. He wasn't just the ring chaser who stacked the deck. Now, he was the guy warring with egg avatars in the middle of the night. That toxic cocktail defined the coverage. He could drop 50 points and hit the game winner, but the post-game chatter would still find its way back to the same topic. The jokes were relentless. The memes were immortal. The story refused to die. It became the luggage he couldn't check. From team to team, season after season, the shadow of the burner accounts was always right there, walking step for step with him. Every time he hit send on a tweet, the internet turned into a crime scene investigation, people zooming in, analyzing syntax, asking, is that really him? Every time he clapped back at a hater, the timeline exploded with accusations about secret accounts and digital disguises. If a rumor even whispered through the grapevine, fans were already joking that he started it himself from a basement somewhere. It reached a breaking point where the only way to kill the noise was to step out from behind the curtain and address the madness head on. No filters, no avatars, just the truth. Durant had to walk into the fire and speak on it publicly as the man himself stripped of the digital mask, with no secret profile to retreat to when the heat got turned up. And when he finally sat down to face the music, his response wouldn't just be a soundbite. It would define how this entire bizarre saga went down in the history books, because the apology was coming and the fallout was inevitable. By the time Kevin Durant finally took the mic to address the burner account debacle, the situation had mutated into a full-blown media circus that he could no longer control. The screenshots, They were everywhere, burned onto every timeline, plastered across every forum, circulating through the internet's bloodstream like a virus. Sports debate shows had been feasting on the carcass of the story for days. Memes were spreading like wildfire across Twitter and Instagram, and the phrase Kevin Durant burner account had officially entered the casual vocabulary of every basketball fan on Earth. At that stage, the damage went way deeper than a few petty tweets or some hurt feelings. It was about the narrative. The perception of who he was as a man had shifted. For the vast majority of his career, Durant's identity was bulletproof and simple. He was the Slim Reaper, the silent assassin, the guy who let a 30-foot dagger in the finals do all the talking for him. Even when he shook the league by joining the Warriors, a move that made him the villain, the hate was still strictly about hoops, rings, efficiency, legacy, and the pursuit of basketball perfection. But the burner account saga? That flipped the script entirely. Suddenly, the headlines weren't about his unguardable jump shot. They were analyzing his psyche. He wasn't just Kevin Durant, the cold-blooded scoring machine anymore. He was Kevin Durant, the insecurity-riddled superstar who got into shouting matches with teenagers on the internet using fake names. And that is a label that sticks like glue. It followed him into the locker room. It haunted his post-game pressers. It shadowed every single step he took on the hardwood. Every single tweet was dissected under a microscope. Every time he snapped back at a critic, the internet roasted him, joking that he forgot to log out of his secret account. And whenever his name started trending, the immediate reaction wasn't awe, it was suspicion. People were constantly looking over their shoulders, wondering if there was another sock puppet account pulling the strings. The story had metastasized, becoming bigger, louder, and more ridiculous than the original mistake ever was. Durant had his back against the wall. He had no choice but to kill the speculation. No more hiding behind a cryptic emoji or a burner handle. He had to do it face to face, lens to lens, with nowhere to hide. When the moment of truth arrived, the vibe in the room was heavy. Gone was the defensive, sarcastic, too cool for school attitude fans had come to expect from his online persona. This time, Durant didn't try to cross over the question. He didn't try to dunk on the reporter. He didn't spin a web of excuses or claim he was hacked. He looked the camera in the eye and admitted he had completely lost his cool. But I happened to take it a little too far, he said, the regret palpable. And that's what happens sometimes when I get into these basketball debates. That level of honesty was a shock to the system. For years, KD built a reputation on clapping back, never letting a slight slide. He battled media narratives daily. He went toe-to-toe with randoms in the comments. He defended his legacy with a sword and shield. But right here, he laid the weapons down. He wasn't defending the action. He was acknowledging that his competitive fire had burned the wrong bridge. He broke it down, explaining that while he loves the banter and lives for the hoops talk, the situation had spiraled into something ugly he never intended. What started as friendly fire turned into shots at people he actually respected, former coaches, teammates, and that, he admitted, was the foul that couldn't be ignored. Then came the confession, the quote that would be replayed on SportsCenter on a loop. Boy, that was childish. That was, idiotic. All those type of words. And I apologize to him for doing that. Those words hit like a ton of bricks because they weren't filtered through a publicist. He wasn't being held hostage by a league mandate. He wasn't robotically reading a statement typed up by a nervous PR agent in a suit. He spoke straight from the gut, calling himself childish and idiotic, and offered a genuine apology to the people caught in the crossfire. It was a rare, raw glimpse of vulnerability from a titan of the game who had spent a decade building armor against public opinion. He didn't point fingers at the media vultures. He didn't blame the toxicity of Twitter. He didn't claim his words were twisted. He owned it, fully. And by taking the hit, he completely changed the energy of the conversation. Because up until that second, the burner story was just a joke, a spectacle for laughs. It was easy to mock, easy to meme, easy to frame as a pampered superstar having a meltdown. But when Durant stood there, visibly upset with himself, admitting he crossed the line, it stripped away the caricature and made him feel real. He wasn't just a logo or a jersey number caught in a scandal. He was a human being who reacted emotionally, messed up big time, and felt the sting of regret. He even peeled back the curtain further, admitting he hadn't eaten or slept in 2 days, explaining how furious he was with himself for letting it get this far. That little detail changed everything. It wasn't just background noise to him, it was eating him alive. It mattered. Then, he took a breath and laid out the game plan for the future. "I'll scale back a little bit right now," he said, signaling a retreat from the digital battlefield, "and just focus on playing basketball." That statement, it felt like the ground shifted beneath our feet. A total turning point in the saga. He was done fighting ghosts in the comment sections. No more 3 a.m. Twitter wars, no more hiding behind anonymous avatars to defend his honor. He was stepping back from the digital noise to let his game scream louder than his keyboard ever could. And honestly, that is exactly what the fan base was desperate to hear. Because through all the drama and the noise, nobody, and I mean nobody, ever dared to question the man's talent. The guy was still a walking bucket, one of the most lethal, ice-cold scorers the league has ever witnessed. He could still snatch the soul out of an arena in 3 possessions flat. He wasn't just a player, he was the gravitational center of the entire NBA landscape. But we can't pretend the burner account fiasco didn't leave a mark. It fundamentally changed the lens through which we viewed the Slim Reaper. It peeled back the curtain and revealed a side of him we weren't ready for. A side that actually cared obsessively about what random strangers thought. A side that read every single notification and clapped back with emotion instead of strategy. And in a weird, twisted way that humanized him. Sure, a chunk of the fan base looked at it and cringe laughed, calling it embarrassing behavior for a millionaire. To the critics, it looked soft. It looked like a global superstar with rabbit ears who crumbled under the weight of a little trash talk. But if you looked closer, you saw something else. You saw raw proof that elite athletes bleed, just like the rest of us. They aren't robots. Suddenly, the untouchable basketball god was just a guy scrolling through his phone, feeling the sting of an insult. It made Durant incredibly, painfully relatable. It proved that you can have the championship rings, the scoring titles, and the legendary highlight reels, and still be that guy stressing over a mean tweet from a teenager in a basement. But here is the danger. Once the internet paints a narrative on your back, that paint does not wash off. For KD, the burner account story became the tattoo he couldn't laser off. It is a permanent talking point. Years have passed, folks, and the jokes? Oh, they are still flying. The second he replies to a fan online, the timeline erupts. "Is that you, KD? Forgot to switch accounts?" Every time a wild rumor surfaces, the internet swears it came from one of his secret profiles. It became etched into his legacy, stitched right into the jersey, whether he liked it or not. But here is the savage truth that the haters hate to admit. None of that drama stopped the bucket. Durant continued to torch defenses with absolute impunity. He kept locking down all-star spots. He kept reminding every critic with a Wi-Fi connection why he is carved onto the Mount Rushmore of this generation. The controversy didn't sap his powers. It didn't delete his championships from the record books. It certainly didn't help the poor defenders waking up in cold sweats knowing they had to guard him. If anything, the chaos just added texture to the legend, a little spice to the story, because that whole burner saga revealed a glitch in the matrix of a superstar. It showed us that behind the trophies and the stoic face, there was a human being who gave a damn about his reputation. A guy who read the comments, internalized the hate, and felt the burning need to fire back. Sometimes he did it from his verified account, sometimes he slipped into the shadows of a burner, and yeah, sometimes he hit send and immediately thought, oops. But when the smoke cleared, he didn't run. He stood tall in the fire, he admitted he was childish. He owned the mistake like a man. He apologized, dusted off his jersey, and did what legends do, he moved on. Because in the NBA, the drama cycle spins fast. Narratives flip overnight. Headlines fade into the archives. But the game is a relentless machine that never stops rolling. New villains rise, new stories break. And through all the noise, you still have to lace him up and perform under the bright lights. And Kevin Durant did exactly that. He kept playing, he kept scoring, he kept proving the doubters wrong, one jumper at a time. Burner accounts, Twitter debates, media circuses, none of it mattered when the ball was tipped. He remained one of the most unguardable, unstoppable forces the sport has ever seen. If you felt the intensity of this story, go ahead and smash that click on any of the cards popping up on your screen right now for more.